All right, so welcome to another episode of the Go with John show. Today we're here with Dan Aminoff with Citizens One Mortgage. And Dan, you're a branch manager with Citizens One. So what does that mean?
So I'm the branch manager of the Falls Church office for Citizens One. We're the home lending division of Citizens Bank, which is based out of Providence, Rhode Island. Mm-hmm. I've been with Citizens now for just over 3 years. And we have been growing here in the DC metro area all that time.
Right. And, just for the folks listening, so there's obviously a huge Stanley Martin Custom Home connection. You're one of our preferred lenders and have done a lot of mortgages for our buyers, you and Mike Zell, over the years. So that's kind of how we know you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mike, luckily retired this past July. He's enjoying the life down in Wilmington.
Yes.
So I miss him. He's my phone a friend.
Yes.
So
yeah, I miss him too. He's been great to work with. You guys have both been great to work with. So, guys, tell us a little bit about who you are and how did you end up at Citizens?
So I'm originally from Southern California. I went to school at UC Davis. While I was in Davis, my best friend's father owned a mortgage company. So he immediately hooked us up, him and all his friends. We were working for his dad's company.
Right.
So I started in the mortgage industry, believe it or not, when I was 18. And here I am almost 40 years later, still in it.
Amazing.
Over that course of time, I ended up moving back here to Virginia in 1998.
So what brought you to Virginia?
So my current wife.
Funny how that works.
Exactly.
Huh?
So a friend of mine from California had moved here.
Yeah.
And knew that I was single, and he was working over at Freddie Mac, and had a friend there who thought she would be perfect for me. Finally coaxed me to come out here.
Right.
Had a blind date.
Wow.
And the rest was history.
Wow,
So,
that's got to be some sort of a record, right? So a blind date from the West Coast to the East Coast.
Exactly. And a year later, I was living here and starting my mortgage career on the East Coast.
Wow. So that was like pre-internet, right?
Internet was around, but not much. I think we had
barely functional, right?
Maybe we had email, and not everyone had an email address.
Yeah.
But it was definitely in the early days.
Boy, the world has changed quickly, hasn't it?
It has.
Yeah.
I was just talking to a friend today, actually, at another mortgage company. He was telling me that they've got some subset of loans now that never see a human. It's all electronic. They pull in the employment data. They pull in the deposit information. They run it through an automated underwriting system, and off it goes.
Right.
That's
the W-2.
They grab everything.
Yeah.
Because there's so many databases these days with deposit information, employment information. They run it through the scoring model, and boom, you're approved.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Technology's come a long way.
It's come a long way.
Yeah. So let's talk about, one of the things I think that's really, generally people understand mortgages. I think our audience is fairly well seasoned. I think our audience probably we don't have a lot of first time home buyers maybe listening, but we do have some. But we're really heavy in the construction to perm space, and I think maybe give us a rundown of how does it just kind of briefly, because we have had other episodes where we've talked about this, but kind of give us a brief synopsis of how does a construction to perm loan work.
Generally a construction to perm loan works. Our program's a one-time close. So what it does is it allows you to close one time. Mm-hmm. It builds in the construction part over 12, 15, 18 months, depending on how much time you need. And then without having to do a second closing, converts from the construction phase to the permanent phase, and is fully amortizing over the remaining term of the loan. Mm-hmm. The attractiveness of it is you qualify today based on your current situation. We close you, and that's it. It's like a one and done type of thing. So whatever happens between the time the house is under construction and the loan converts, doesn't matter.
Right. So, but you say it's a one-time close, but is it really though? Is it? I mean, because don't you technically have to do a close at the beginning and then?
The second part, when the builder hands the keys back to the owner,
Right.
is called a conversion.
Right.
So
that's just a tricky word for close, isn't it? Though.
But it's really not a closing because there's no title fees. There's
Okay.
no transfer tax.
Right.
Basically, it's just a kind of a process where the buyer accepts the home from the builder and
Right.
says, we're good.
Yep.
And then keys go back to the homeowner.
Right.
They move in and everything is done.
Yeah, but when you call it a conversion, though, that's when they're really taking possession of their 30-year fixed mortgage or their 15-year ARM or whatever it is you've decided is
Correct.
best for them.
So the timing, yes. So the timing on the conversion also triggers the time when we convert it from the construction phase to the permanent phase.
Right. So the first part of the loan is a line of credit.
It's essentially a line of credit. The borrower will pay interest only on the amount advanced at any given time.
Mm-hmm.
So as you're going through and completing the house, you're drawing more and more down on the line that's set up for the construction loan till you get to a point where you're done. And then that amount is the amount that converts over to the fully amortizing phase.
Right.
And the borrower just starts making regular monthly payments.
Right.
At that point.
So what happens at the end, right? And I think the more, one of the great things about me doing this podcast is I'm learning so much that I had no idea how much there was that I didn't know. It's just, you don't know what you don't know.
You don't know what, yeah.
So, I'm learning that at the end of the process, different lenders require different things with regard to, like, for example, a RUP, right? A residential use permit, or some people call it an occupancy permit. There's a lot of different names for it. Right. But when you get to the end of the transaction and the house is nearing completion, what do you need at Citizens One to get the loan closed? And how do you guys handle that process?
So generally, what happens is you get to the point where you're pretty much done. The builder will request what's called a final draw,
right?
Which will be the remaining amount he needs to close out everything. Mm-hmm. At that point, typically the house is finished, and you can call the county and say, come out and give me an occupancy permit.
Right.
We'll also send the appraiser back out to do a final inspection to be sure that the house was built actually per the plans and specs that we had a year ago when we first closed the loan.
Right.
Every once in a while, we get some different houses that were built because they changed things along the way and didn't tell everybody. But,
Yep.
So we send the appraiser back. So once we have the certificate of occupancy, the final inspection, and then the title company clears us of all mechanics liens,
right,
we're good.
Right.
We're done. And
but that can take some time. So basically the house can be completely finished and done and sitting there, and nobody can really move in yet.
So it's as with anything, it's a process. Some of these things can happen concurrently. Some of them have to happen in stages. Mm-hmm. So it's best if the builder, the earlier they can request their final draw and know the date that they're going to have the, I don't know what you call it when you hand the keys back, but whenever that conversion date is, a week to 10 days is typical.
Right.
And because for us, and it's not the same with all lenders, we do want the appraiser to come out and do that final inspection before we'll do the final date down on the title policy.
Right.
So that's where it gets a little hinky, just because
everybody's got their own.
Yeah, we got to get that in before we can do the next thing.
Right.
Some people do it simultaneously, but by doing that, you run the risk if a mechanics lien happens to hit between those couple of days before you've got the title date down and you've turned the keys over back to the borrower, there's some potential risk.
Right. Right. That makes sense. So what advice would you have for people that are thinking about going into a transaction like this?
So it really is, as you were saying earlier, it's really more for somebody that's a seasoned homeowner. Generally, the demographics that I see are people that have lived in their home for some period of time, maybe 5-10 years. They love the area, but they don't want to go through the process of having to sell their home and try and buy another home, especially in the resale market that we're currently in.
Sure.
So they love the location. They just, their house is dated, or it's not big enough, or whatever number of reasons they have. So they look to a custom home builder to come in and either do a major renovation or a complete tear down and build them the house they want on their own lot, which allows them to stay in the school district, keep their friends in the neighborhood. And it, the biggest thing, I don't know what you guys have seen with design lately, but masters on the main are a big thing right now.
Right. Well, it's really funny you bring that up. I mean, the main level master is a really tricky floor plan, because there are a lot of people that want them, and there are very few homes out there. They're very difficult to sell. You can never seem, it's sort of like dating, right? There's never the perfect house on the market with a first floor master when you've got the buyer who wants a first floor master. So there is a pretty good demand for building them. And I think as our population ages and as time goes on, I think that market will be easier to tap into. But another trend, though, that I'm really seeing is a lot of people are doing a main level bedroom, right, with a full bath. So
it could be a guest room,
exactly,
maybe
they use it for an office. But then if somebody, if they're aging in place and now they can't get up and down the steps anymore, they might convert it to a bedroom down the road.
Options.
It's kind of a backup. But it is a trend. So from a financial perspective, when somebody's getting ready, because to me, I always tell people I'm really high level, right? I don't get into the detail because you do that, and everybody is unique and everybody has their own unique financial situation. But I tell people that the banks, and correct me if I'm wrong, are generally more conservative when they're lending money on a construction loan. You've got to have a little more cash reserves in the bank. You need to be a little more of a stable individual in order for the bank to feel comfortable lending you the money. And the reason I tell them that is because the bank is lending you money and then you're tearing down the asset that's there, and you don't really have an asset to replace it for a period of time. So they want to make sure you're stable and liquid. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, John, that's 100% correct. So the unique thing about these construction loans is that the people, you're right. I mean, we're going to tear down the collateral. It's not going to be there. So we want to be sure that, first of all, the people have the wherewithal to continue to make the payments during the construction phase, which are really just interest only. But they may also be renting a place while the construction is going on, so they have a little bit of an extra payment, even though it might be temporary. That's why we like to be sure they have some additional cash reserves. Then you might just get on a regular resale or a refinance. The other thing about it is we do this one-time close thing. So we want to be sure that the people have stable employment, because when it comes a year from now, when it's time to do the conversion, we want to be sure that not much has changed, even though we can't do anything about it. But we just don't want them to be in a situation that's financially harmful that would lead to some other situation.
Right. So let's just say, because I run into this a lot, where somebody's gone online and they go to a mortgage calculator and they want to buy a house that's 1.3 and they put in their numbers. So, and then they feel like, okay, well, I might just buy land and build a home, and they're using that same data, and it really gets complicated, right, to try to manage people through this process. But if somebody qualifies for a loan that's like 1.2 million on a conventional mortgage, and that's really the max that they're going to be able to do you have any kind of a rule of a thumb number? What might they qualify for in a construction loan?
It's probably not much different, because again, people each have their own individual situations with other obligations, car loans, rental properties, student loans, things of that nature. So it's hard to just braid
a blanket statement.
Blanket
I get
statement.
that. Yeah,
but generally, I mean, if they qualify for $1.2 million on a regular loan, they should qualify generally for $1.2 million on a construction loan. The issue in a construction loan also is the equity piece.
Right.
So they also, again, if you've owned a home for a substantial period of time, you probably have some decent amount of equity in the home as is, which will certainly go a long way to helping you, for for a rebuild in connection with another home. If you're looking to buy a lot and then do a build, you pretty much have to have 20% equity of the future value of the home. So
Right.
even though the lot may be, say, 800,000 today, if the total project, the lot plus the construction's $1.6 million, you may need 400,000 worth of equity as opposed
Right.
to something much less.
Right. So, and your down payment on the lot is applied to that, more or less. It gets kind of murky.
Exactly. Because I mean, certainly a portion of it is. But again, the 20% requirement is going to be based on the total project cost.
Right.
So.
Great. All right, we're gonna take a quick break. We're here with Dan Aminoff. He is the branch manager of Citizens One in Falls Church, and we'll take a quick break, and we'll be right back. A lot of folks think that building a custom home is a complicated and arduous process. It doesn't have to be. At Stanley Martin Custom Homes, we have the process down to a science. We will bring you through the buying, design, and building phase one step at a time. Head on over to webuildonyourlot.com and check us out. Reach out to us if you want to get started on the path to your very own Stanley Martin Custom Home. So we're back with Dan Aminoff, and he is the branch manager of Citizens One in Falls Church. So we've been talking about construction loans, and let's just talk a little bit more about construction loans, and then we'll go on to some other topics. But what do you think are some of the keys to having a successful transaction when you're building a custom home with a construction loan?
So the key, the main key is to pretty much know what you want up front. So when you meet with the builder and maybe they've got a catalog of homes, once you've chosen the home that you want, the next thing to do is kind of the details, the finishes, the granite, the flooring. Try and do as much of those up front as you can, and if you can't, at least know that you want to do hardwood floors so that we can build in an allowance for that amount into our cost projection.
Right.
Because we're going to do an appraisal based on the plans and specs, but we also, even though you may not be ready to do some specific, the outlets go here or there or whatever, we need to generally know what the house is going to contain because we have to do our appraisal.
Right.
And the more data we have to complete our appraisal, the higher the value you're going to get, which makes it that much better for your transaction.
Right. And I think that's one of the things we do at Stanley Martin Custom Homes is we give our buyers, because it is really hard. So I have built homes personally. I have bought homes from builders personally over the course of my life, and it's really hard. I mean, I understand what it is to have to try to make those decisions. So I can take my own experiences, and I bring it into the Stanley Martin program where we give our buyers data up front where, like you said, we give them the pricing for hardwood floors. So if they know they want hardwood floors, they have that pricing information right at the very beginning. So when they start their loan process with you, our buyers should have a really good handle on what they may want to spend on finishes. Doesn't mean they have to.
Right.
But at least we have a good start. And boy, the whole design process, once you start picking cabinets, now maybe you don't want hardwood floors anymore, right? You know. So
exactly.
It's tough.
So it's tough. So that way, yeah, exactly. And like you say, maybe they want hardwood floors in all the bedrooms.
Yeah.
That's fine. And we could certainly account for that up front. But at the end of the day, if you want carpet, that's fine because it's probably a lesser cost.
So the challenge is you're trying to figure out what is going to be the total at the end of the transaction. And if you don't know if you want hardwood or carpet, then you don't know. And if you start with hardwood and you start with your initial appraisal with hardwood and then you build the home with carpet, now you've just devalued the home slightly, right? So it may impact your equity position.
It could have some effect. The buyers or the borrowers,
Same thing.
They may, they may not know up front, but if they can come up with a cost that we can work with X amount of finishes. That'll allow us to get the appraisal done, and then we can go from there. In the scheme of things, the type of granite you have on your countertops and some other things aren't going to be a huge mover in the overall value.
Right.
Things like a completely finished basement versus an unfinished basement.
Yeah.
Those will get you good dollar.
Right. Square footage. Finished square footage.
Yeah, we'll get you good dollar for dollar in terms of value. But that's, and people change their mind a lot. So, for us, if we can get to a point where they can, be comfortable with, the valuation and the cash investment at the time we're doing the loan, that will, and we build in some allowances for some other things, that will allow them to close,
right,
get the project underway,
yeah,
and then they can go to the design center and
right,
and figure it all out.
But like you said earlier, they should communicate with you, right? So if they start making some changes, then let you know.
Exactly. So if they, for example, the biggest one we seem to get all the time is like a screened-in porch that they then want to enclose and make more of like a sunroom kind of a thing.
Right.
Well, that's that could involve some structural type things that will make a difference in terms of the overall square feet and the cost and all that type of stuff. So if you make any of those changes while you're kind of have your loan in process, we need to know about those.
Right. Good. So that's really good information on construction loans. So are there any other lending tips or advice let me just say, my advice to anybody listening who's thinking about building a home: get in touch with a lender and really start the process with your lender very early on. I think a lot of buyers get deep into the process before they ever reach out to a lender.
I would agree, John. There's two parts to these construction loans. There's the credit piece that you would have with any type of real estate loan, and then of course you have the project piece, which people are more focused on because they're building a house. But yes, they need to be sure that they have their ducks in a row on their credit piece. That includes your pay stubs, W-2s, tax returns, bank statements. If you get everything online and you haven't downloaded them, or you don't know where to go to get them, early on in this process is probably the time to start gathering those,
figuring it out. Yeah.
Get those things together. Maybe put them in a shared drive of some sort. Just keep them secure, but have them ready to be sent to the lender when it comes time to apply for the loan.
Right. Just good advice.
Yeah.
Good advice. So let's talk a little bit about you. So what are you're in a leadership role, obviously, at Citizens One. So what advice do you have for folks that may be listening? We have a lot of entrepreneurs that listen to our show and a lot of people that want to get ahead. What advice do you have for folks like that may want to go into the banking industry?
Yeah. So the key thing, as with any business, as with any relationship, communication is always key. So and be upfront with people about what their situation is. From a lending standpoint, somebody comes to me and they want to build a $3 million house, but they can only afford a $1 million house. You need to tell them that this is kind of where you're at.
Right.
You may be able to do this, and this to get to the point where you can then afford a $3 million house, but you're not there right now. Oftentimes, like you were saying earlier, I'll get people that they spend time with the builder, they fully designed this house, and they come to me, and I'm like, well, I don't know how you're going to do this because you will only qualify for X amount of a loan.
Right.
And if you don't have the cash to bring in for the difference, it's a problem.
It's funny. It's a funny thing. I tell people this every day, and it's the absolute truth. Everybody has a dream, and everybody has a budget. And the dream is always bigger than the budget. Always.
It is.
And the people that have really big budgets, like $2 million and $3 million, they have a $5 million dream. Your folks that have a $1 million budget or $1.5 million budget, they have a $1.7 million dream, right? So the gap is a lot closer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And So yes, it makes sense to talk to a lender, as soon as you're kind of engaging in this process. Plus, it is, as we were saying earlier, it's a little bit different in terms of the qualification and the cash reserves and the things you need to have. So, so we just want to be sure that that's all dialed in.
Sure. So do you have any keys to your success? Kind of shifting gears a little bit. Yeah. What things have you done in your life that have helped you achieve success?
The key thing is being organized and having a system. Mm-hmm. In the mortgage business, it's fairly commoditized. So, they're doing a loan today is not much different than doing a loan 40 years ago.
Right.
So as long as you have a system and certain things happen at different times in the transaction, and you make everyone aware of that, every transaction will go fairly smoothly.
Right.
If you're disorganized and spread too thin, you're going to overlook something, and all of a sudden everything's going to fall apart because it's like a house of cards.
Yeah, I get it.
So my key is to stay organized, stay on track, and be able to track everything individually.
Right, fantastic. So Dan, is there anything else you want to add before we close out the episode?
John, I mean, it's a great market to be doing loans in. The DC market has been my home for almost 25 years now. And the one thing that never ceases to amaze me is the amount of cash that's in this marketplace.
It is unbelievable. It is surprising.
When people tell me they've bought this lot or bought this house for north of $1 million, $2 million in cash, it never ceases to amaze me.
Yeah.
So
I agree with you, and you don't know what you don't know. I said that earlier in the episode, but it is when you get into the real estate industry in this market, and I mean you're almost the capital of the free world here. I think we still are. Yeah. You do run into a lot of surprising situations and people, mostly good.
Yeah, mostly good. And for those that need financing, we're here to help them. So
fantastic. Yeah. Well, Dan, thanks for coming in. We've been chatting today with Dan Aminoff, branch manager of Citizens One Mortgage in Falls Church, Virginia. And you can contact Dan through our website. We'll put the information online. So Dan, thanks for coming in.